This happened last month. I was a struggling freelance graphic designer after losing my steady job. I needed a fresh start, so I moved into a cheap apartment. It was small and run down, with peeling paint and creaky floors. Everything felt stale and dated, like the smell of the carpet. I thought it could help me focus on my work, but I had no idea what was coming. One evening, I felt desperate and hungry. It had been days since I had a proper meal. When I stumbled upon an ad for an online food delivery service offering a mystery meal, I didn't think much of it. I clicked to order. I figured it couldn't be worse than instant ramen. When the food arrived, the smell was unbelievable. My stomach growled as I took the first bite. I just kept eating. I didn't stop until my plate was empty. I felt satisfied in a way I hadn't in ages. Days passed, and something started to change. I opened my fridge and saw leftover food I didn't order. It was filled with things I had never seen before. I tried to brush it off, telling myself I was just imagining things. Did groceries disappear sometimes? But then the tapping started. At first I thought it was the pipes or maybe rats, but it kept happening. When I washed dishes, when I worked late, that tapping was always there. I glanced out my window and noticed my neighbors. They seemed to watch me closely, whispering in hushed tones. I could see them standing at their doors or peering through curtains. Sometimes I felt their eyes on me. Maybe I was just paranoid. But the strange food and odd behavior weighed on my mind. I couldn't shake the feeling that my mystery meal had brought something strange with it. Why did my neighbors act so oddly? I started questioning myself, even about my own choices. I thought about that meal often. A chill crept into my bones. The tapping grew louder. I was sitting at my desk when I thought I saw a shadow moving in the hallway. I turned around, but the space was empty. I felt uneasy. I should have left it alone, but fear gnawed at me. Could they see something I couldn't? I rushed to my door, desperate for fresh air, but then I paused. What if they knew about my decision? What if they wanted something in return? The tapping came again right behind me. I froze, the hairs on my neck standing up. A faint whisper floated through the air. It's not just food. My heart raced. I turned around quickly, but there was no one there. I felt trapped in that little apartment, surrounded by invisible eyes. I didn't know if I was safe anymore. Something twisted had come with that strange meal. I was drowning in a darkness I didn't understand. I rushed back into my room, shutting the door tight, but the whisper lingered in the air. Did my neighbors know? Did I really want to find out? The next morning I could barely concentrate on my work. The whisper haunted me. I kept replaying it in my head. It's not just food. What did that even mean? I couldn't shake the feeling that my decision to order that mystery meal was the source of everything strange happening around me. After several hours of aimless design work, I decided I needed to know if anyone else had experienced this. I pulled up my laptop and started searching for the food delivery service. Maybe there were reviews online. Maybe someone else had felt the creepiness too. Just as I was about to give up, I found a forum. Users shared their experiences, some detailing mysterious packages arriving without a trace of how they got there. Others spoke of strange dreams and unwanted shadows lurking at night. My pulse quickened. No way, I muttered under my breath. The more I read, the more anxious I felt. One post mentioned a peculiar ingredient in these mystery meals that supposedly created a connection with the neighborhood. It was mentioned in passing, but it left me feeling unsettled. What kind of connection? And why did everyone seem to watch me? I slammed the laptop shut, frustration bubbling inside. I needed air. I walked over to the front window and peered outside. I was hoping to catch a glimpse of my neighbors, maybe see if they were still watching. But instead, I saw something I hadn't noticed before. A door at the end of the hallway was slightly ajar. What if it led to answers? My heart raced as I made my way down the creaky floorboards. Each step felt heavier, as if the apartment itself was urging me to turn back. But I couldn't. I needed to know what was going on. As I approached the door, the tapping began again, rhythmic and persistent, echoing in the silence. I paused outside the door, the whispers seeming to swell around me, urging me closer. My hand trembled as I reached for the knob. The handle turned smoothly, but I hesitated. What if I opened this door and stepped into something worse? But the curiosity pushed me forward. I took a deep breath and pulled it open. The room was dark, the air stale. I could barely make out shapes and shadows in the corners. That's when I saw it. A strange trinket sitting on a table, a small wooden box engraved with symbols I didn't recognize. My blood ran cold. It looked just like the packaging from the food delivery. I turned to leave, but the whispers grew louder, wrapping around me like a cloak. "You shouldn't have come here," they seemed to say. Panic clawed at my throat. Before I could react, the door slammed shut behind me. I was trapped. In the dark, I felt a chill wash over me. I could hear footsteps approaching. I wasn't alone. And whatever it was that had come with my meal was now right there with me. Instantly, I knew I couldn't stay still. The footsteps grew louder, a steady rhythm echoing like a warning bell in my head. I need to find a way out. I felt the panic rising, making it hard to breathe. I was trapped in this suffocating darkness, and whatever was coming closer felt like it was made of shadows. I took a moment to gather my thoughts. What had I stumbled into? My eyes adjusted slightly, allowing me to see the edges of the room better. It looked more like a storage space than a room. Old furniture and boxes were piled against the walls. A flicker of light caught my attention, a small crack beneath another door on the opposite side. Hope surged through me. Maybe it led outside. I moved toward the sound of the footsteps, careful not to make a noise. Each creak of the floor felt like it was announcing my presence. I didn't know what was coming for me, but I was sure I didn't want to meet it face to face. As I sidled up against the wall, I felt the urge to look behind me. A shiver rolled down my spine as I caught sight of a figure emerging from the shadows. It was a silhouette, tall and thin. I couldn't make out any features, but I felt its gaze right at me, piercing through the gloom. I squeezed my eyes shut briefly, trying to block it out. The whispers ramped up, overlapping each other like frantic conversations. "Join us," one voice called, smooth and enticing, while another chided, "You shouldn't have come here." I pressed my back against the wall and continued to inch toward the door. That crack of light was my only goal. Suddenly the figure stepped fully into the weak light. It was wearing a mask, a smooth, featureless white mask. It raised a hand, and I felt something in the air shift, like the temperature dropped even more. Then the whispers stopped. "Why are you here?" it asked, voice echoing unnaturally, as if layered over itself. I stumbled back, feeling panic jump from my chest to my throat. I had no answer. I just wanted to leave. "Was it the food?" the figure pressed, tilting its head. "Did you not understand?" I shook my head, backing away. Time to run. I turned and sprinted for the door to my right, heart pounding, hands clammy. But before I could reach the doorknob, the figure moved rapidly, blocking my path. I skidded to a halt, fear coursing through me. "It's too late now," it said softly, a cruel smile hidden behind the mask. "You made a choice, and choices have consequences." I had to think fast. I remembered the wooden box I had seen before. Maybe it held the key to whatever was going on. With a sudden burst of courage, I dashed back toward the other end of the room and snatched it from the table. I could feel the figure watching me, perhaps waiting. My fingers trembled as I opened it. Inside was an assortment of strange items, herbs, small stones, and what looked like a dark feather. Beneath them, something glinted, a small, ornate key. My heartbeat quickened. What would it open? The masked figure stepped closer, and I knew I didn't have much time. "You must decide," it whispered. "Use the key or face what's behind you." I looked between the key and the figure, realizing I had a choice to make. A way out or a confrontation. But the sound of footsteps echoed in the shadows again, this time coming from the room behind me. I felt the walls closing in. I had to act fast. What would I choose? I tightened my grip on the key. This small object felt impossibly heavy, a token of my desperate situation. I glanced back at the masked figure, a quiet threat lingering in its posture. With each passing heartbeat, the footsteps behind me drew closer, a chilling reminder that time was running out. I had to pick. The figure, calm and patient, waited for my decision. Behind me, the shuffling grew louder. My breath quickened. I remembered the door, the one beckoning with light. It had to be a way out. But would that key unlock more than just a door? Use it, I quietly urged myself, the words barely escaping my lips. I took a step toward the door, but hesitation gripped me. Was it a trap? Would it lead me to safety or something worse? The whisper of the figure tinged my thoughts. You can't run forever. Its voice was almost soothing, but the malice was still clear. My instincts screamed at me to trust no one. I took another step, heart racing. Then, as if sensing my resolve falter, something behind me slammed into the wall, a forceful bang that made me jump. My body reacted before my mind did. I pushed myself forward, barely keeping my balance as I reached for the door handle. It was cold, the metal biting against my palm. The footsteps stopped abruptly, a heavy silence filling the air. I turned. The masked figure had moved. It now stood just a few feet away, blocking my escape with an air of confidence. You have to face the consequences of your curiosity, it said, leaning slightly forward as if to study me. Get out of my way, I shouted, surprising myself with the defiance flickering to life inside. I glanced back at the key in my hand, suddenly aware of the weight of my decision. The figure tilted its head, an unsettling smile beneath the mask. I took a risk. I rushed past it, not directly toward the door, but to the side, toward the shadows. I was banking on distraction, my heart pounding in my chest as I ducked behind an old armoire. The space was cramped and musty, but I could see both the figure and the door. I held my breath, waiting to see what would happen next. To my surprise, I noticed the figure hesitating. It seemed unsure, eyes scanning the room. The silence felt thick, almost suffocating. I peered out just enough to see its body tense, ready to pounce in either direction. In that moment, I caught sight of movement near the door, a flicker of something slipping through the crack. It was small, darting quickly, and it vanished as quickly as it appeared. My instincts kicked in again. I couldn't just hide. I needed to know more about whatever was happening. I darted from behind the armoire, squeezing through the space toward the door I initially rejected. I could feel the cool metal of the key against my palm like a pulse. What if that flicker meant another option, another chance? As I fumbled with the door handle, I hesitated. A part of me felt pulled back toward the figure. I turned to face it one last time, the masked threat still in its unmoving position. But I had to know. I had to escape. I turned the key in the lock, unsure of what lay beyond, but ready to confront whatever awaited me. Then everything went dark. I gasped, the darkness wrapping around me like a heavy blanket. For a moment I felt weightless, as if I was floating, until the world abruptly shifted. There was a jolt, and I landed hard on a cold, uneven surface. My breath came in short bursts. I blinked, the darkness fading just enough to reveal my surroundings. I was in a dimly lit room, cramped and dusty. Shadows danced along the walls, and I could barely make out the shapes of old furniture scattered about. My heart raced as I pushed myself up, the key still clenched tightly in my hand. I could see nothing in this cramped space that resembled the door I had just unlocked. Where am I? I whispered to myself, a tremor of fear creeping into my voice. No windows, no way out. Panic clawed at my throat. I listened intently, hoping to catch a sound, any sound, that might guide me. Then, a low scrape echoed from somewhere behind me. I turned swiftly, eyeing a dark corner. I could barely see, but I felt something moving just beyond the reach of the dim light. "Hello?" I called out, my voice unsteady. Silence answered me, thick and unsettling. My instincts screamed to run, but curiosity anchored me in place. I had to find out what was lurking. I crept closer, heart thudding loudly in my chest. The scraping came again, sharper this time, making me flinch. I edged forward until I found myself standing at the intersection of two walls. My breath caught as I stepped into the slant of light from above. In the corner lay something that looked like a small wooden box, splintered and worn. I crouched down, fear mingling with intrigue. That was when I saw it, a flicker of movement beneath the box. I jerked back, heart racing, and in that instant the box shot open with a loud creak. A small, battered note flopped to the ground. I picked it up, hands trembling. Scrawled in messy handwriting was a message: "Beware what lies beneath." Before I could process the words, the tension in the air shifted. I felt a whisper of cold draft surround me, and a voice, familiar and mocking, echoed in the back of my mind. "You shouldn't have unlocked that door." My eyes darted back to the corner, where I thought I had sensed movement. This time, though, there was nothing there. A chill swept over me, reminding me of the figure I had left behind. Had I really escaped? Or had I only stepped into a worse trap? Just then, I noticed the shadows beginning to coalesce further into the room. They twisted and turned, and I realized they were forming something, a figure, dark and looming. My heart raced, too fast, too frantic. The note slipped from my fingers and crumpled to the floor. I turned to run, but the shadows were closing in around me. The door I came through was gone, swallowed by an unseen force. I clenched the key tighter, knowing I needed to find another escape. But would it lead me to safety or deeper into the unknown? The answer lurked within the approaching darkness, and I had to decide my next move before it was too late. I took a step back, panic flooding my senses. The shadows slowly transformed, pulling themselves into a definite shape. My heart thudded against my ribs, urging me to keep moving. I needed to find a way out, but all I could see were the outlines of forgotten furniture and creeping darkness. "Please," I whispered, "just let me go." But the figure seemed to pulse with malevolence. It didn't respond, only shifted closer, each movement deliberate as if savoring my fear. In a scramble, I searched the walls, desperate for a way out. My fingers brushed against something rough and cold. It was a panel, barely perceptible in the dimness. I pressed against it, heart racing. It didn't budge. A shrill whisper echoed around me, growing louder with each heartbeat. "You shouldn't be here." The voice wrapped around me, sending shivers down my spine. I looked up, squinting into the shadowy void. I felt like prey, cornered and lost. Suddenly, from the other side of the room, faint light flickered. I turned, my mind racing with hope. Maybe it was an exit. I darted towards it, guided by instinct rather than reason. But as I approached, the light dimmed, like a dying ember, leaving me in near total darkness once more. I spun around, and the figure loomed closer, but I could now see its outline. It was twisted, grotesque, and somehow contoured like a person. I shivered, the cold gnawing at my resolve. I was running out of time. "Find the truth," the figure intoned, its voice both taunting and sorrowful. I took another step back and felt my foot catch on something. I stumbled, barely catching myself before hitting the ground. A thump echoed in the silence, like a drumbeat of doom. "What are you?" I yelled, the fear in my voice evident. My chest felt tight, like a bear trap. I could hear the shadowy figure's breath, shallow and raspy, rattling through the air. With a sudden burst of desperation, I lunged for the wooden box. My fingers scrambled against its surface until I found something. A small brass latch hidden on the side. In a panicked motion, I yanked it open and peered inside. It was empty. A surge of frustration washed over me. "What am I supposed to do?" I shouted at the creature. But it didn't answer. Instead, it dissolved into the walls, merging with the darkness. That was when a faint glimmer caught my eye. Underneath the box, where nothing had been moments ago, lay a small, ornate mirror. I picked it up, the surface cold against my skin. In its reflection, I saw not only myself, but the shadowy figure lingering behind. It grinned, eyes glinting with malice. Suddenly, the room began to tremble. Dust fell from the ceiling, clouds swirling around me as if the world was unraveling. I gripped the mirror tighter, unsure whether it was a weapon or my only hope. As the ground shook beneath me, I felt something shift inside, a flicker of understanding. The key in my pocket weighed heavily, suddenly feeling crucial. It was time to confront whatever lay ahead. Then, another shadow emerged from the depths, bigger and more menacing than before. The air grew thick, and I realized I had unlocked a door that led beyond mere shadows. I had awakened something that shouldn't be disturbed. Now I had to choose, face the mirror creature, or find a way to use the key and escape this nightmare. The choice loomed over me, and I had to decide quickly. Time was running out. I could feel the air shift as the larger shadow loomed closer. My heart raced. I wasn't just facing a terrifying creature. I was standing at the brink of uncertainty. What would the mirror show me if I looked again? Would it lead me to my truth or my doom? With a deep breath, I made a decision. I couldn't let fear claim me. I needed to try the key. I shifted my focus back to the panel I found before. Maybe it was more than just a simple wall. Perhaps it was a way out. The mirror dangled from my fingers, heavy with implications. But the shadow inched closer, and I felt trapped. I dashed back, my eyes darting to locate any surface where the key might fit. "Come on, come on," I whispered under my breath. I needed hope, something to ground me. My fingers skimmed over the cool wood of the panel again. I pressed again, harder this time, feeling for any sort of seam or opening. Then I spotted an odd outline near the ground, a keyhole half hidden by a layer of dust. Relief flooded me. This was it. I fumbled in my pocket, heart pounding, as I retrieved the small, ornate key. It glimmered in the faint light, promising answers and escape. I inserted it into the hole, the metal cool against my palm. It fit perfectly. A click echoed against the silence. The panel vibrated under my touch, and I pushed it. It opened slowly, revealing a narrow passageway lit with a flickering light. But the shadow behind me wasn't done yet. It lunged forward, and I barely slipped through the opening before it reached me. I stumbled down the passage, clutching the mirror and the key tightly. The walls were lined with old portraits that seemed to watch my every move. Their faces were twisted, mouths open in silent screams. I shivered, feeling their cold stares pierce through me. Each portrait was more menacing than the last. The hallway was alive with tension, each step echoing like a death knell. Turning back to glance at the exit, I saw the tall figure still reaching for me, now trapped in the doorway. For a moment I thought I'd made a mistake, but then I felt it, an unsettling pull towards the darkness behind me. Find the truth, my mind echoed. I needed to confront the meaning behind my own reflection in the mirror. There was another door further ahead, bordered by flickering candles. When I reached it, I took a moment to steady myself. I pushed the door open just a crack, peering inside. Inside, the room was filled with more mirrors, each reflecting not just images but swirling memories. I stepped through, feeling a compulsion to look. That's when I saw it. A version of me already in the room, looking back with a knowing smile. It was me, but twisted. A look of malevolence danced in her eyes. The room closed in, panic enveloping me again. "What are you?" I gasped, my voice trembling. But before I could get an answer, the door slammed shut behind me, sealing my options as darkness spread through the mirrors, ready to consume everything in its sight. I stood frozen, staring at my twisted reflection. The sinister smile on her face made me feel sick. I tried to turn away, but the mirrors intensified her presence, pulling at my attention. She mirrored my every move, always one step ahead, just out of reach. I caught a glimpse of new reflections, each showing shadows of moments I had feared to confront. Lost friends, missed opportunities, haunting decisions. "What do you want from me?" I shouted, my voice shaking as panic clawed at my throat. Without warning, the lights flickered and the room darkened. The shadows deepened and the whispers of forgotten memories began to swirl around me. I closed my eyes, desperate for any sound of reason. Then I heard it. The whispers congealed into a single haunting word: truth. The word echoed in my mind like a bell tolling in the quiet. I opened my eyes. My reflection seemed to grow taller, more imposing. "You already know," she taunted. I took a step back, bumping into another mirror behind me. The glass rippled like water, sending a chill through me. I had seen that ripple before. A familiar memory. A deal I had made last month, a simple agreement for food in exchange for a hidden trust. But it had led me here, to this moment of face-to-face reckoning. Suddenly the darkness shifted again, and I gasped as the walls pulsed, morphing. The mirrors reflected fragments of my past, chaotic and breathtaking. I could see myself eating dinner with friends, laughing by a campfire, and then shadows creeping in, darkness swallowing the joy. My heart sank. Each moment was tainted by choices that haunted me. "Face it," the dark reflection whispered, stepping closer, the grin widening. "What have you sacrificed for your comfort?" I felt a surge of anger. "I didn't know," I shouted, the truth boiling in my veins. "I was just trying to survive." "Were you?" she countered, her voice dripping with disdain. "You think survival justifies the price you pay?" In that instant, the mirrors began to vibrate violently, the air thick with tension. I felt disoriented, almost sick. I knew that whatever trapped me here wanted me to surrender to despair. I couldn't. Not now. I had a chance to reclaim my truth. I met her gaze. "You're not me. You're just a reflection of my fear." She paused, the sinister smile faltering. The mirrors around me flickered, and I seized the moment. I raised the mirror I carried, the one that had pulled me into this maze of confusion. "I choose to confront this." The glass pulsed, glowing faintly. I felt the power of my decision surge inside. Each flicker of light pushed back against the darkness, illuminating the gruesome truths that loomed in the corners. I could feel the shift, the struggle to break free. But then came a sharp crack. One of the mirrors shattered, pulling my attention. My heart raced as I braced for whatever fallout was about to explode from it. Deep within, I sensed the answer lay there, hidden in the shards of broken frequencies. "This isn't over," my reflection hissed. I knew it was right. The journey was far from complete. But I had an opening now. Hope flared as the shards glimmered, promising something more. Before I could think, I lunged toward the jagged mirror shards, ready to confront whatever truth they would reveal. The moment I lunged, time slowed. I reached toward the jagged shards, their sharp edges gleaming menacingly. Just as my fingers brushed against the glass, a surge of energy hurled me back, slamming me into a wall of reflections. I grunted as pain shot through my back, but I refused to let it distract me. Through the chaos, I saw scattered images, only snippets at first, then clearer scenes flickering to life like a poorly tuned TV. My frantic face, trembling, showed desperation. I was there again, standing in line at the community pantry. I could see myself accepting a container of food, emblazoned with a logo I had learned to recognize. The price for help was already haunting me. "Why are you doing this?" I shouted at the shards, knowing they couldn't answer, but some force, was drawing me in, drawing on my guilt. I could feel a pull, like a magnet jabbed deep into my chest. As I steadied myself, a voice laughed, echoing from the dark corners of the room. "You think you can handle the truth?" The reflection smirked back at me, an exaggerated representation meant to intimidate. "You opened the door. Now it's time to face the consequences of your choices." Just as anger flared again within me, I noticed something beyond the shards, a hidden reflection forming behind them. It was a scene from last month after I made that desperate deal for food. I hadn't seen it before. I squinted and leaned forward. Two figures stood beside a table covered in bizarre objects, strange trinkets, worn books, what looked like a small locked box. That's when I saw it. A flash of light, a signal, passing between the two figures, a deal being struck without my knowledge. I gripped my arms to quell the chill creeping over me. What had I really agreed to? The memories. My dark reflection taunted. "You've got a flair for avoiding confrontation, but all choices come with strings attached, don't they?" "No!" I shouted, frustration boiling over. "I won't let you twist this." I stepped closer, ignoring the way the shards seemed to shift, threatening to cut me. The tension was thick, almost suffocating. Then, from the heart of the shards, something began to emerge, a hand reaching out, trembling as if begging for connection. I stumbled back, feeling the terror grip me. Who was it? What did it want? Before I could let the anxiety consume me, I felt adrenaline surge. I turned my attention back to the jumbled reflections. "What are you hiding?" I demanded. The air hummed with tension, and I felt a sudden warmth flicker in the glass beneath my touch. Suddenly everything grew still. The shards, the cacophony of whispers, it all stopped. A thick silence enveloped the room. I held my breath. Was this the moment I'd find an answer, or something darker lurking? Then, without warning, I was pulled forward, and the world around me flipped. I felt a sudden rush, as if I were being drawn into the mirror itself. Panic rose within me, but I had to know. I had to see where this slippery truth would lead. In that instant, I crossed through the barrier and everything went dark. I stumbled forward, disoriented and breathless. Emerging from the darkness felt like bursting from the depths of water, gasping for air. I blinked against sudden brightness and found myself back in my apartment, the familiar creaky floors beneath my feet and the peeling wallpaper lining the walls. For a moment, I thought it was all just a nightmare, but the weight in my pocket told a different story. I reached down to retrieve the ornate key, its cool metal still grounding me in this reality. Had I truly escaped? Or was something still lingering, waiting for the opportune moment to resurface? I looked around, half expecting to see the shadowy figure at the door or hear the whispers creeping in. But there was nothing but stillness. I darted to the window, peering outside. The sunlight bathed the neighborhood, transforming everything into a washed-out version of itself, as if it had all been a dream. Yet looking into the distance, I caught sight of my neighbors, the same ones who had watched my every move. They stood outside their doors, whispering among themselves, their gazes fixed on me with a peculiar intensity. "What do you want?" I shouted, my voice soaking up the silence. But they simply stared, a collective knowing behind their eyes, like they were waiting for something, perhaps my return. The thrill of suspicion crawled up my spine. As I turned away from the window, a mixture of relief and dread washed over me. I felt as if I had narrowly escaped a trap, yet I couldn't shake the notion that I was still a part of something far more sinister. The memories of the whispers and the shadowy figure lingered in my mind. "You should have faced what lies beneath," that dark reflection had said. Footsteps echoed in the hallway, soft but undeniable. My heart thumped. I hadn't closed the door fully. It stood slightly ajar, and I hesitated to investigate. What if the shadows had followed me back? I gripped the key tightly in my fist, almost as if it might protect me somehow. With bated breath, I stepped slowly toward the door. Outside, I could hear the gentle rustling of the leaves from the trees, life continuing on as if nothing had changed. Yet inside, an unsettling calm settled over me. It twisted like a vine, squeezing at my trust and desire for peace. I twisted the doorknob, pushing the door open cautiously. The hallway was empty, an empty canvas waiting for the strokes of unsettling colors that had splashed over my life before. I stepped out, ready to confront whatever reality awaited me outside. But no sooner had I ventured into the hallway than a fleeting shadow dashed past the window of one of the neighboring apartments. It was gone before I could process what I had just seen. My pulse quickened. Had I really escaped the depths of shadows, or had I simply passed through yet another door? As I moved down the corridor, I felt the weight of my neighbor's eyes upon me, unyielding and restless, a haunting reminder of my choices. I reached the staircase. The echoes of whispers faded in and out of my mind, a reminder that this could never truly be over. I could move on, but could I really leave behind the remnants of my curiosity? I stepped down each rung, contemplating the nature of what I had survived, the strange truths woven into the fabric of my choices. Would I ever shake the feeling that I was still connected to that darkness? As I pushed my way outside, the sun hit me like a warm embrace, but I still felt a chill of uncertainty beneath it. Would this haunt me, even as I tried to rebuild my life? Would I always carry this secret desire to uncover mysteries that might endanger me? I clenched my fist around the key once more, a reminder of the power I held and the grip it took on my existence. I moved to a different city after that. It wasn't an escape, but a fresh start. Sometimes I wonder if those neighbors knew something I never would. Did they still watch me? Were they waiting for another meal? I could feel the tingle of fear creeping at the back of my mind, lingering like the shadows I thought I had evaded. But mostly, I try not to think about it.